This episode is brought to you by Zencastr. Zencastr is the number one tool for all podcasters. You can record high-fidelity audio between remote locations and get studio-quality sound. Go to Zencastr.com and use coupon code THATENTERTAINS for 20% off for 3 months or 20% off an annual plan.
This is a That's Entertainment podcast.
Awesome.
Just tell people they're awesome and mean it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Did you have an awesome time? Did you drink awesome shooters and listen to awesome music and then just sit around and soak up each other's awesomeness?
Awesome. That was awesome. You guys are awesome.
No,
You're awesome.
no.
You are awesome.
Sir, you are awesome. Seriously.
Awesome. Awesome.
Everything is awesome.
Welcome to this week's edition of Everything is Awesome. I am your host, Kev, and this is the show where we sit down and talk to awesome people about awesome things. What a busy week for me. It's been a busy September. Keystone Comic-Con has been keeping me on my toes and whatnot. So finally, we're getting this episode out that we'll get to our guest in just a second. But we're also been busy planning After Party of One Pod. That has been a fun little adventure that I am in the process of editing right now. We have hopefully some big news coming up when it comes to both the network and this show. The network, we're in talks with some more people to produce their shows and whatnot. Mike and I are talking about putting on more shows, which we tease in our Keystone Comic-Con episodes that will be coming up after this week here. Just a lot of good things going on. And if you want to help support us and this network on doing those cool things, head on over to patreon.com/thatentertains and you can subscribe to our network Patreon, which helps cover hosting fees for all our shows, including Everything is Awesome, The Ladies Who Rant, Bullies Keep Out, Victims and Villains, and After Party of One, and all the other shows that come down the pipe. You can subscribe for as little as $2 a month, or you can hit that sweet spot at $5 a month and get early access of exclusive content, or you could even go higher and get other cool swag and just cool benefits for being a subscriber to the That's Entertainment Podcast Network. Which again supports not just Everything is Awesome, but it supports us, Bullies Keep Out, The Ladies Who Rant, Victims and Villains, and a whole other bunch of shows coming down at you. If you're looking for a non-monetary way to help support this show, you can also go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating review. Every 5-star rating review on iTunes helps us get in front of more ears, so that more people are listening to us, and the more people that listen to us means that we can do bigger and cooler things. Word of mouth recommendations is also a great way to help this show. This week is a fun episode. As you can tell by the episode title, Yoga Hosers. I finally sat down and talked with Kevin Smith. No, that's not true. We'll get him on one day soon. But this week I sat down and talked to Roshni. She is based out of India, a fitness instructor who is also on a plant-based diet. So we chat about travel, Roshni's time in America, and diets versus lifestyle changes, plus so much more. Let's not delay this anymore. Let's go to my conversation with Roshni right here on awesomepodcast.com and thatentertains.com/network. New York is if traffic is nice around like the bridges or the tunnels, if we're going from Jersey to New York City, it can be done in 2 hours. It's typically like probably realistically like a 3.5-4 hour trip from. I'm in the suburbs of Philly, so from where I'm at, it can take at most 4 hours. So it's
But sometimes just getting out of Manhattan is like 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's exactly like I've sat to get into the city. I've sat through the Lincoln Tunnel for, I mean, oh God, probably my longest was like an hour and a half or more. I used to travel for work, and when I first started traveling, Long Island specifically was like my go-to destination. So weekly, I would go through those tunnels and bridges.
Right. Oh, wow. Weekly is crazy. That's a lot of travel.
Yeah. I used to, and then, you know, it was nice though, because it was like a driving distance still. When went to places that were more than about a 6 hour drive is when I would start to fly. And
Yeah.
I'd be on a
Right.
plane and minimum 2 times a week, unless I had to travel somewhere else in the middle of the week. So then there would be like a third plane trip or whatever. So I thank God that travel can be fun, but it's something that I did. Like, I'm so glad I did 10 years ago. And now that I
I know.
have kids, I'm glad that I'm more settled in.
Yeah, yeah. Same here. I would do that. I mean, and I also encourage people when you're younger, travel, explore, because you miss out on that. Once you start settling in and you have family, you have so many responsibilities. You don't have the time. I mean, you might have the money, but then it's just no time. You're just working all the
Yeah.
time and you just have no time to travel.
Yeah, and I was had the benefit of like work kind of flipping the bill for my travel, and I never really went anywhere like exotic. Like, it was all United
Within the state.
States, and it was all
Yeah.
within the States. It was all primarily East Coast. Like, I think I've been to I know I lost count. I want to say like 27 of the 50 states I've been to, and like all the East Coast ones. Um, so it was fun for that, just to kind of say, oh man, I've checked all these off. I'm getting excited for the point where the kids get a little bit older and we can like take them on more exotic vacations outside of like Disney World and Busch Gardens. Like, we typically go to like amusement parks, and
Right.
I love Disney World. It's such a fun place, but I like, my dream vacation is to go to Ireland for like a week and a half, and just like be with. I'm very, I my full name's Kevin Gallagher. I'm 100% Irish practically, and so I would
Yeah.
love to go see the motherland.
And you've never been there?
No, I've traveled outside of the United States a handful of times. Canada for work, and then like the Dominican for a family wedding, and Mexico for a little small vacation with my fiance. But
Right.
that's nothing too major when it comes to international travel.
But recently what I'm into, and we did this vacation last weekend also. India has a lot of really ancient properties, like 100-year-old bungalows.
Oh wow.
These are huge, vast kind of mansions, haunted mansions kind of thing. And they rent them now. Many of them are like privately owned or government owned, and they rent them out. So you could rent like a 10-bedroom bungalow for yourself,
Mhm.
and that comes in with like a housekeep and a cook, and you just stay there.
Oh, that's neat.
And it's beautiful because I mean it takes you back to ancient roots and culture, but also it's you don't get all the luxuries of travel, but it's just beautiful being in such places.
Yeah, yeah. And that's something like I'm very fortunate with like my current day job that like when by the time I'm 55, which is 21 years from now,
Yeah.
I'll be able to I can retire, and I'll probably end up having to get a like something part time. But my fiance is a teacher, so the plan is to hopefully when I'm 55, just have summers off, and I'll now at 34, 55 doesn't sound too old. So
Right. Yeah.
we'll be able to hopefully travel in the summer.
Yeah, and take like 2 months off, 2 months of 2 months of the year off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like it's a weird, like, I have a hard time transitioning the fact that I'm actually an adult, like a grown adult that has a full-time job. I have my own family, 2 young kids. So sometimes I forget that, like, yeah, I'm not a kid anymore. Like, I'm actually working towards the ability to do something like that once I'm, retired.
Right. Yeah.
So so when you were in the States, what made you cut like what made you live in the States for 5 years?
Well, I came there for my bachelor's. I was studying my bachelor's at the University of Buffalo. I did my bachelor's in psychology, and then I moved to Manhattan, City University of New York, to do my master's. And yeah, I was there for 5 years, and then I moved back to India for a family emergency. And
Mm.
I was living and working in the States, and I really liked it. As much as I love India too, I think there's so much of culture and family, and it's just vibrant and colorful, and there's almost a festival or something, a reason to celebrate every single day of the year.
Yeah,
Literally, like,
yeah.
because every single state has its own language, they have their own culture. India's like, it's like every state is like a different country. I mean,
Hmm.
there's so
Hmm.
many languages, and I'm from the northern part of India and settled down in the south. But the language spoken in the south, people in the north don't speak, and vice versa. So
Okay.
I love that. But New York also gives you a lot of exposure and work opportunities. I think was so much better there, especially in the field which I am in, which is fitness. Uh,
Hmm.
India is just exploring fitness now. Only 1% of the population uses gyms and fitness centers.
Oh wow,
So it's like
that's nuts.
there's a huge scope of growth, but there's not that much awareness um, versus when you're
Yeah, yeah. I feel like, and maybe this is because again I'm getting older, but like I'm definitely way more health conscious now
yeah,
than I was 10, 15 years ago,
yeah,
and have started that. Like I I was I hit my heaviest earlier this year at like 260 pounds, and I was like, oh man, and like I'm just under, like I'm practically 6 foot, so
okay,
like definitely about like I guess I think 80 pounds overweight at that point,
yeah,
and I've the first thing I did was like kill soda. I was like, all right, I'll do that. That's like guaranteed to lose me 25 pounds.
yeah,
But I realized that was in my 20s. Like
right,
that.
yeah,
So I had to do something more. So we actually combined. I've now combined fitness with Weight Watchers, and it's been like, it's I've lost just under 25 pounds since I started like 2 months ago.
that's amazing.
Uh, yeah. And for me, like I said, that used to be like a 1 month, maybe even 2 weeks. I think my personal best is losing 25 in 2 weeks, but that was all sugar because I used to drink a case of soda
Yeah,
practically a day when I was in my 20s.
wow,
So uh but yeah, like this more natural kind of way to lose weight. 25 pounds over 2 months seems kind of more realistic when I talk to people. And yeah, it's like it's neat not feeling like I'm on a diet. That's like important to me. Like
right, yeah.
uh like I don't know. So when you say you work in fitness, do you cover like kind of the whole spectrum of like, actual physical fitness as well as like the nutritional side of things?
All four, actually, I would say. You have the physical fitness, you have the nutritional aspect, you have lifestyle changes, because you want to, whatever changes you're making to get fit, you don't want to do it till you only lose weight. You want to do it for the rest of your life so you don't gain the weight back. So lifestyle modification is huge, and now, especially now with the kind of clientele I'm getting, mental health has become a great issue, because I see people with eating disorders, I see people with depression, anxiety issues, performance issues. Like, people are so oriented with the number on the scale, and that trying to understand where the client is coming from and then helping the client, and every client is different, because
Hmm.
the way they think, and with so much of work pressure, relationship pressure, getting your health right is just another aspect. So discussing mental health with them is, I didn't see this 10 years back, but now it's so important to even discuss with people, like, who are you living with at home, what is that person's dietary habit, do you have work stressors which is probably causing hormonal changes in you, which is probably causing you to gain weight, because it's not only about eating more. Maybe you just have so much of stress going on, and the stress hormone is directly linked with belly fat.
Hmm.
So talking to clients about that, yeah.
It's interesting because like for like I'd say when it comes to like mental health, I never really kind of lumped that in with
Physical health,
um
right?
yeah, like it's, I mean and it's especially in, I think, 2018 in America, it's a topic that a lot of us take seriously when we talk about mental health. We have one of the other shows on our uh two of our shows actually on our network. One is called Bullies Keep Out, and they've done topics on mental health and whatnot, and another one is Victims and Villains, who part of their show is about suicide prevention and stuff. So we have a couple shows that like are very kind of in that topic of mental health. And like I said, I think in the States, it's at least from my point of view, which is probably very narrow and very uninformed. It's a big topic that a lot of people discuss and are very serious about, but I don't know that I've ever heard it talked about in the same vein as like physical fitness and nutritional fitness.
What happens, like I have clients who, Monday to Friday, you're following your diet, you're doing everything right. And over the weekend, they go and they binge eat. Now,
Hmm.
what most fitness experts would do would say, oh, you have less willpower. You don't have a very good willpower, and that's why you're not able to stay on diet. But that's not always true. Maybe the client is suffering from a borderline eating disorder, or maybe there's peer pressure, or maybe the client has an issue with alcohol and goes out over the weekends and has a little too much alcohol and has no control over what he or she is eating, or maybe there's self-image issues, or just you're so anxious and you have anxiety, performance related anxiety, so you set a goal like, I want to lose, let's say, like you said, 25 pounds in 2 weeks, and you're not able to reach that, so you're just
Hmm.
counting out and you just go out and eat everything and kind of just give up. So instead of just blaming the client that you don't have willpower, maybe trying and understanding what the client is going through, I think makes a huge difference. Even in terms of, because you don't want the client to feel that they are a failure and they can't
Hmm.
do something. You want to understand why is the client failing, and I think fitness experts should start doing that. Understand why you're not able to. Why do you have cravings? Why are these temptations arising? Why? And just not blame the client. Okay, you're just a failure and you don't have self control.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense. I know when I am stressed or depressed, I tend to lean and I tend to lean towards like, oh, I'm just not going to care what I eat, and I knock on wood, I've been better since I've started Weight Watchers. Where when I get like that, I try not to, or if I do, I don't necessarily. I still have portion control when it comes to that, and that's for me, what I find that I like about Weight Watchers is that it's, and you just said it, it's a lifestyle change versus a diet where and I think it can be really kind of attributed to just like how your brain kind of thinks of those two terms,
Exactly.
where if it's a diet, once you hit your goal, you're done. You can go back to eating regular food versus the lifestyle change. Oh, well, I know now that eating this certain type of bread is really like, it might be a little bit tastier, but I can eat this other bread that's way healthier for me and not going to really affect my, and in Weight Watchers terms, my points all that much.
Right.
And it tastes the same. It's still a carb that tastes exactly the same as the other bread.
Yeah, but there you made a lifestyle change. It's not a diet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And something that I've really kind of taken from it, more so than even like that whole lifestyle changes, is I've used it as an opportunity to experience different foods or different, like I'm a fruit and veggie guy, but I was always like, I'm not going to eat a tomato unless it's in sauce form, really.
Yeah.
But I've started taking slices of tomato and putting it on a sandwich because it's just a little bit of extra consumption for my stomach, and it's really not doing me any harm by eating that slice of tomato.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And a lot of times just your natural body, like your body is beautiful. The way your body functions is really beautiful. It gives you signals exactly. And we are just so busy, we just fail to listen to the body signals. Like for a person who's craving a lot of sugar, maybe you have like, a lot of candida or bad bacteria in your stomach, or
Mm.
parasite, and that's what's making you crave sugar. Now what we are going to try and deal with is, oh, I'm craving sugar and I'm going to try and cut down on all kinds of sugar. Well, that's not going to fix it. You still need to deal with it, because you're going to give up to temptations. Eventually you're going to eat something which is sugary and get into this guilt mode, and but try and listen to your body signals. Every time the body is telling you something, it just means, every time there's a craving, it really is a very clear signal. Like women crave a lot of chocolates when they have their menstrual cycles or periods, and that's mostly because the magnesium levels in your body drop, and chocolates is just, cacao seeds are just very naturally high in magnesium, and your body's actually craving magnesium and not really chocolate. So maybe increasing your dry fruit intake like cashews and almonds during your menstrual cycle will not make you crave. So I always tell my clients, listen to your body signals, don't ignore them, and try and understand what your body is trying to communicate with you.
Yeah, and that is definitely a learning process, and I think even just finding like the your lifestyle change path is like is a learning process. What I've every time I sit down and someone says, "Hey, man, you've been losing weight," I can see it, and they ask me what I've been doing, and I say it's Weight Watchers, and I've started going to the gym a little bit, and I go into the Weight Watchers spiel. And I'm like, listen, I know this sounds real cultish, but it's a lifestyle change and a diet,
Okay.
and I sound like such like I feel like I'm part of a cult when I say that, but what for me, like the app that they give you to basically tell you like here's what you can eat, which is really everything. It's just saying if you want to eat a slice of pizza, it's going to cost you like
So
nine
many,
of your 30 some points, at least that's what I have. So
yeah,
is it really worth using 9 points for that one slice of pizza once a week? For me it is.
yeah,
But I spent 33 plus years, 33 and a half years eating however the hell I wanted to.
yeah,
So now for like, I'm going to use this app for the next few years to retrain, to help me retrain what I want to eat. And it naturally pushes you towards, you know, more like less sugars, more protein, more veggies, more fruit, more like every food group it pushes you towards. And it's, for me at least, I like to throw that in there because I don't want to sound like I'm pushing it on people. Like that's such a great little tool that I have as someone who really like with two kids. I go to the gym usually around midnight, so there's no trainers really there for me to work with.
right.
Um, it's a great little tool for me for how my life is working right now to kind of like help me get down to my goal weight of healthiness.
Right. And that's what it is. There should, I mean, when people talk to me about diet, like you said with Weight Watchers, you have the freedom to eat a pizza if you want to eat a pizza. So if a diet is like, very, very strict and there's a lot of don't, then no one's going to be able to follow it. So when anyone's trying to get on like a program or a diet, um, maybe having like a little bit of freedom, there's no good or bad food. It's only about quantity. I mean, if you're going
Yeah.
to eat too much, you're going to gain weight. If you're not going to, if there's a caloric deficit, you're going to lose weight. And if you're going to eat healthy, obviously you're going to get fitter. So having the 80-20 rule, maybe 80% of the time eating clean and then 20% of the time having the freedom to be able to enjoy the food which you like to enjoy, I think is what fitness.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that for me is still allowing myself to have those, I mean, this past when I was camping, as we discussed earlier, I kind of just threw every rule out the book when it came to drinking, and I drank a lot more than I normally do.
Yeah,
But like typically, like I when I off air, I believe we discussed how I had to knock my wall down and rebuild my wall, and that kind of like closed off part of my studio. And when that happened, it was the first time since I started Weight Watchers that I bought a case of beer, and really the first time I remember in the last few months buying a whole case of beer and drinking more than a beer a week. But that's typically like I'll let myself have a beer or two throughout the week. It's
right,
not. I don't. Part of that is also being in my 30s, but and same thing with like the pizzas and that's really the only thing I can think of like that's quote unquote like people look at as a bad food that I really kind of indulge in. But I also like I love burgers, but I've swapped it out for from beef to turkey because it's a little bit healthier for you, and for me it tastes practically the same.
right. But and that also keeps you on track, right? Having that little bit of freedom,
Yeah,
um, having something to look forward to over the
yeah,
weekends, because you cannot stay in a shell. You cannot stay on a diet for the rest of your life. You cannot have a no social life, and I don't think you should. Everyone, and especially for people who go to the gym, you're working so hard on your body. So I think you should have the freedom to, once in a while go and eat the way you want to eat.
yeah. And like I think one of the great little like tips, and I've kind of stopped going to the meeting portion of the Weight Watchers, just because it happens to be that summer's a busy time. So I had time to like go and get my official weigh in and leave. But when I was going to the meetings, like one of the cool, I think, tips that I learned, aside from everything else we've discussed so far, is like when I go out to eat, typically I'm going to eat, like past Kev would eat the whole burger and all the French fries. Now I try to cut it in half and get a box right away and just throw half of it in the box so it's sight unseen. And
Right.
that's the thing, is like it's 100% amazing how little food in one
Yeah.
sitting I actually need to eat to be fully satisfied, and how for the last 33 and a half years that all that extra food was just me, probably being a typical American, just eating all the food that's in front of me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's also with the body. The moment you start making small lifestyle changes which are healthy, your body's going to like 100% support you. So
Yeah.
you're not going to crave as much for bigger quantities. And especially with your intake of fruits and vegetables and high fiber, you're not going to you won't reach out for junk as often.
Yeah.
It's not even like you're stopping. It's not even like, you're forcing yourself to make healthier choices. It just naturally comes because your body wants to be healthy. You want to be healthy. It's just natural. It just A fit body is just natural. It comes naturally as long as you start making small lifestyle changes at a time.
Yeah. And so talking about diet, I don't know if is your vegan, plant-based, is that the same thing?
There's a difference. So,
Okay.
difference between vegan and plant-based is someone on a plant-based diet is only restraining from eating products which are from animals. It could be honey, eggs, meat, dairy. But someone who's a vegan or identifies as a vegan is also abstaining from the use of leather, silk, things like horse riding or anything which causes any harm to the animals. So that's basically
Okay.
the difference. Plant-based eater is making food choices which are free of animal products, and a vegan is living a lifestyle which is free of animal products.
Okay. So and because I know this was a note in that was sent to me, but I forget which one it is.
Yeah,
Because that was like, you're like the only one of the, if not only, is it vegan fitness trainers in India?
yeah. I'm one of the plant-based fitness
Plant
trainers.
based. Okay.
I Yeah, yeah. I mean, I aspire to be vegan, but there are certain things, of course, still I'm still transitioning. There are some beauty products which I have before I was vegan or plant based, which have been tested on animals and things. But my choice to be on a plant based diet is purely out of health. Ethics comes much later, but it's just from a health perspective, which has worked on my body type and
Mhm.
which works for a lot of clients I work with. And being, I would almost say, dairy addict, having a lot of food very, very high in, cheese and butter and all of that. I just know how it reacts on my body, and now not having any of it, my performance is much better, and my energy levels are much higher, and it just agrees with my body.
So and this is always kind of been like, I guess, a question in the back of my mind when it comes to vegetarian, plant-based, vegan type of eating, all whatever you classify yourself as,
Yeah.
and not you, just like the royal you, of people out there. um what what, because to me it's always been hammered in, and I don't know if it's just like culture or I just like to eat meat, but like it's been hammered in like, oh, protein's important. And it seems to me when you're eating plant-based and you're cutting meat out,
Yeah.
you're limiting protein. So like what do you, is protein as important as everyone says it is? And B, assuming it is, what do you do for protein when you're plant-based?
Yeah. Well, protein is obviously important. Protein is the building block of the human body. So you need protein um, to gain muscle mass. But a lot of people get this confused. Your muscles are made of carbs and proteins. It's not only proteins. Your muscles require carbohydrates and it requires proteins. Um, Plant-based proteins is the easiest to digest by the body compared to animal-based proteins. So if I'm taking, let's say, 120 grams of plant-based proteins, all of that is directly absorbed and digested by my system versus the same amount of animal-based proteins, if it's coming from dairy or meat, causes a very acidic environment in the stomach and is much harder to digest by the system. Also, a lot of it, like especially dairy protein, casein, which is one of the most important proteins found in dairy, is very carcinogenic for the system. It's cancer causing.
Oh wow.
If you look at a lot of athletes, like the Williams sisters, a lot of distance ultra marathon runners or tennis players or many people during their training phase and a couple of weeks and months before their competition go on a plant-based diet just because it's easier to digest, and it just helps you recover. It helps your muscles recover faster. So if you're comparing the two, plant-based protein in terms of digestibility, absorption part is much easier. Now the second thing, like you said, is protein important? Yes, it's important, but not as much as you think. Your body cannot digest more than 25% of your total calories coming from protein. If you're taking any more than that, it's just thrown out by the body, flushed out, or it leads to the formation of stones, which could be dangerous for you.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds dangerous. When you say
Yeah.
stones in your body, that's
Yeah.
it makes me cringe.
Yeah, so if my body weight right now is 120 pounds, I need about 100 grams of protein. And if I want to build muscle mass, about 120 grams of protein. And I competed as a bikini athlete where I had to have very low body fat and high muscle mass. I was, I think, at 14% body fat. And at that time, I took about 120 grams of protein, and that's the highest I've gone. And you still build muscles. And now I'm competing um, in powerlifting in the next few weeks, and I am lifting weights more than a lot of guys in my gym.
That I can. Uh, I would be one of those guys not lifting a lot of weights. I've always been very in high school, and I'm gonna use, I guess, air quotes. I did some weight training.
Right.
Never anything too crazy. I've always been more of a cardio guy, like on the treadmill, or now that my knees are a little bit weaker, the elliptical.
Right.
But what so if you are all right, well, let's like what's a typical for you versus one of your clients? Like, what's a typical, let's say single day workout regime for you?
Right. So I try and, I mean, I barely have time. I try, and if I have time, if I have the luxury of time, it's a good 2 hours on the floor. Because workout for me is therapy. I love training. I love being on the floor, listening to music, cutting the world off. It's like meditation to me.
Yeah.
But if I don't have time, it's like maybe 1 hour, 60 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes. Um, Depending on what I'm preparing for. If it's like a bikini competition, then it would be about 30 to 40 minutes of cardio and remaining weight training. But if it's powerlifting, obviously it's mostly just weight training, just deadlift, squats, and bench. The big powerlifting movements, and maybe 10 minutes of cardio here and there, but no more than that.
Now, is that now maybe I'm do you are you incorporating yoga into this? I don't know if I'm making that note up or not.
No, no, I try to do it once or twice a week, but there's this amazing website called Rombod, and they have guided stretches.
Hmm.
So it's this form of yoga, which, if I'm not wrong, it's called Yan yoga,
Hmm.
in which you're in a yoga pose for about 4 to 5 minutes. So it's like really deep stretches, and that just helps me, I mean, to stretch out every muscle fiber, increasing my range of motion, increasing um, my flexibility, so I can almost lift a little bit more weights. But if I mean, when I was in the US, I used to do a lot of Bikram yoga.
Hmm.
And I think US or the West in general has taken yoga from India and made it into such a big industry. And I think it's beautiful. This You have acro yoga, you have toga, which is treadmill yoga, you have Bikram yoga, which is hot yoga, you have puppy yoga, you have laughing yoga, you have this is the best one, I think. It was yoga with a weed. I forgot the name. It was it sounded so interesting. And you have beer yoga, which is you're having beer, and you have so many these crazy forms of yoga. But I don't think it's as crazy in India. I mean, India just has Ashtanga and Hatha yoga, the older forms where the yoga just, the way yoga was supposed to be done.
Yeah.
But I miss that in the US. I miss having so many different forms of fitness, which India does not have right now. It's growing towards that, but I really miss having that.
So first, I am eventually going to work in some yoga. I used to be a wrestler, like the TV
Oh
style,
wow.
WWE style of wrestling, and I only bring that up because I never really thought of myself as a yoga person, but there's this wrestler DDP
Yeah,
who does the DDP yoga, and I have sitting on my shelf somewhere. I have like his DDP yoga set that I said, oh, I'll eventually do that. I'll eventually do that, and that was months ago, and I was at my 260
yeah,
or 250 wherever I was hovering at when I got it, and I'm now that, and of course I have to get. I've been back for, I guess, yeah, almost 48 hours from vacation, so I need to get back to the gym and get back into my 3 days a week routine that I have. But then I want to start doing yoga, the DDP yoga, the other 2 days a week, and kind of just take the weekends off. But
yeah,
I'm excited to try it because it's something that I've only kind of uh, toyed with, in the sense of like my son specifically, because he's the oldest, every now and then likes to do like, hey, turn on the workouts that's on demand on Verizon on demand.
yeah.
And like one time we found a yoga thing that he wanted to do, and so I've toyed with it in that sense, where I just threw it on TV and tried to do what they're doing, and way not flexible enough to do it. But yeah, I'm interested to I'm hoping to start that in like the next, once it gets a little bit colder, after I get kind of more reps in at the gym.
Yeah.
But all that was just for me to preempt into getting into. So what is it sounds like one of the key differences when it comes to fitness here in the States and over there in India is the variation of whether it's yoga or fitness. Yoga makes you did a good job explaining the different yogas.
Yeah.
How, aside from the fact that maybe it's just more readily available here in the States, how does fitness vary between the two countries?
Um, like I said, a lot of people in India don't use fitness centers. So just 1%, literally 1% of the population uses fitness centers, and I think the statistics was as of 3 years back. So maybe it's 2% now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's not a very fitness friendly um, country, and a lot of people shy away from it for many reasons. Lack of it's okay. So one of the things what I noticed here was fitness trainers, an average session with a fitness expert in the US would be what, 60 $70, maybe $100.
Mm-hmm.
Now in India, an average session with a fitness trainer, you could get 12 sessions in $100.
Oh wow.
So you see the difference. So a lot of the
Yeah,
fitness
yeah.
professionals, and it's changing. Of course, it's changing now with a lot of Bollywood actors promoting it, and international trainers coming to India and sort of exploring the country. So it's, but still, a lot of fitness professionals are not educated fitness professionals. They're just fitness professionals who became fitness professionals because they would have probably competed in a bodybuilding competition, or they would have worked out when they were in college, and they couldn't find a job anywhere else. So it's still new. There's no easy access to like chiropractors. You have physiotherapists, but not physiotherapists who are like sport specific. There are very few people. Um, and this is slowly growing. So because it's like this, it's not as well in terms of education. And I think as and when that grows, more and more people are going to be inclined towards getting fitter.
So for the 90 98% of people that are not taking advantage of fitness centers. It, obviously, I can't imagine. I would have to imagine that that doesn't mean 99% of the people are unhealthy. What are
Yeah.
they? What do people typically do when they're living in India if it's not a fitness center to kind of just keep healthy?
Well, agriculture was the biggest profession in India till like maybe a decade back. So people were physically active, very physically active, working in fields, working outdoors. Um, there was a lot of physical labor work. So people, if you look at our grandparents and great grandparents, they've been very very healthy because they were working outdoors. But now it's just becoming like an IT hub, an IT capital, and
Mhm.
um, desk jobs and all of that is starting to creep in. So now the need for fitness centers is actually there, which wasn't there before. Of course, people, there's walking, there's yoga, there are different forms. It's just not as explored. And I would also, I think food in India is much healthier than in the US.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I can
food
believe
is
that.
healthier. Yeah, so because the food is just healthy, it's mostly it's not there's not a lot of trans fat, there's not a lot of um junk food sort of outlets and centers and fast food joints. So I think people are healthy because of food habits, um, and people are healthy because of there's not a lot of even the medical and the pharmacological industry is not as huge and not as manipulative as I would think in a lot of other states and countries. Um, so I think there's overall health, but there definitely needs to be more physical fitness and even mental health. Like India has this culture of people living in families, and there's joint families, and kids don't move out of parents house till like maybe 30, 40, or maybe even not after that. So it's not a lot of isolation. Um so mental health issues are lower, depression rates are lower, which I think a lot of other countries, it's much higher.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and I guess I can't speak much for anywhere outside of the U.S., but for sure, U.S. and it's we kind of talked about it earlier, where it's for me. I think it's been uh I want to say 2014, if I'm remembering correctly, is the year that we lost Robin Williams, and that
Yeah.
for me is when I took way more notice into to mental health. Even though I've kind of worked in that field for almost like the last 8 years almost, as an IT person, so not directly in mental health, but um, for the last 4 years since Ron Williams died, I've kind of paid attention to it more, and I think at least in the states, it's been paid attention a lot more since then as well. Because it's the happiest dude on well the funniest dude on earth,
Yeah.
that can take his own life, and of course we found out since then there's a lot of other factors that were into it, but that he was so depressed that that I mean I didn't, and I think it was known to actual people that were huge Uber fans of his, but to the general population, like not many people knew he was super depressed. So like to see that 4 years ago the funniest guy on the planet be depressed, and presumably at that time depressed enough to take his life, I think it was a big awakening for people, and yeah, the rates are definitely way higher here in the states than probably a lot of places,
Right.
and it's I just don't think it's 100% getting worked on even here fully, even though we've had like the mental health fields and facilities for decades.
I mean, I think what it's advancing towards is just more drugs, more
Hmm.
treatments. Um, I really wish there were just centers for people, like their libraries, where people can just go and read books. There are centers everywhere for people to just go in and talk.
Hmm.
Just talk it out. Just because as a personal trainer, I've noticed that with your clients, it's less of what you do on the floor in terms of fitness, just having that space for the client to come and just, emotional vomiting,
Yeah.
just me about the day, and kind of a no judgment zone, telling you that they're not happy with their spouse, they're not happy with their spouse, or they hate their bosses, they want to just say that to someone.
Hmm.
So and it makes a huge difference, just having someone maybe even 5 minutes a day to talk it out. Um, I think
Yeah.
that makes a huge difference to mental health. I mean, of course, I'm not talking about people with diagnosed depression where you have like chemical imbalance, but like with cases of just where you can just talk your feelings out, it could make a huge difference.
Yeah, I feel like on some level, everyone has some sort of level of depression in them.
I
Uh,
know, right? Yeah.
so but there is like I know people who absolutely do need the medication in order to function properly. I know people who, for them, their best method of medicine isn't necessarily medication, but it is to sit down with
Yeah.
someone for an hour and pay that person. And I for me, it's I've always kind of like known that my depression is way more low key,
Yeah.
and like definitely don't need medication for it. And I've never been able to find like a professional to sit down and talk with. And so I've always kind of used like creativity. You know, when I used to wrestle, it was telling a story through wrestling to kind of make myself feel better and get that endorphin high.
Yeah.
And now it's podcasting and writing and various other things that I do creatively.
Yeah.
I think that like I said, everyone I think suffers from it, but there's and talking is definitely helpful. And maybe, you know, technically I do talk to people. It's just not a professional. I talk to friends and family and whatnot. So, and it's something that I love that like Bullies Keep Out, the podcast that I talked about earlier, and Victims and Villains, you know, they are great resources for like mental health that offer, you know, whether they're facilitating some sort of conversation or meeting, or they're getting another organization involved. They're like, it's especially I think with like the younger people in the States, at least you see more and more people I think that are, you know, millennials or Gen Xers or somewhere in that range, kind of trying to make themselves available to like help each other. It's I know it's something that I don't say too much on this show, but when topic comes up, I do say all the time, like, I might not have anything to say, but I'm an ear. Like, hit me up on DM me on Twitter, and I'm happy to listen to you vent so that you feel better.
Yeah, and doesn't therapy does not really necessarily mean like sit down meditation. Like you said, for you, it's just being creative. For me, it's just going on the floor and lifting weights. It could be anything where you can shut your mind off for even a few seconds. Like maybe it's cooking for someone, or like being out and, like you said, being in the woods. It does not. People think when you talk about, okay, your stress levels are high, you need to meditate. No, you need to do something where you're not thinking about the thing that makes you stressful, and it could be anything.
Yeah, and it's for me, like I said, it's creativity. Sometimes when I'm stressed because of that, it is actually just throwing headphones in. I'm not a big music guy, so it's usually listening to podcasts and you know, going like, that's what I'll spend a little bit longer at the gym. Like, I'll, you know, I might spend an hour and a half at the gym and just veg
Right.
out listening to a podcast while I'm on the elliptical or whatever. So because that is as much as I'm not the picture of like, hey, this is the guy that goes to the gym. You can tell by his body. I am. I do really enjoy it, and it's more of a casual thing right now. But it is that activity is just, it is a great stress relief. You know,
It does.
for yeah, and I
And
guess it's like it gets those endorphins going or
it
whatever.
does. And it shows on your, it definitely matters on your physical health, because a lot of times when I see my client and I know that they're constantly working like 12, 18 hours a day and they're stressed all the time, especially people in sales jobs, and month end you have sales targets, you're chasing that and you have no time to do anything else. I would put in something like, once in a week, go and meet a friend. And they would be like, I've paid you for nutrition counseling and fitness counseling. Why are you writing this in the chart? And I'm like, you don't realize that. That's the reason you're not able to, if you're not happy, you're not going to be physically fit. And that's just magnetizing, low immunity and illnesses and things into your life. So sometimes the things which makes you most happy, even though you don't have the time for it, make time for it and do it. So you have time and you have the health to do the things which you have to do to continue earning money.
It's funny because prior to us starting the interview, the one of the reasons I was like running just a couple minutes behind is
Yeah,
I went to go see Christopher Robin, the new Winnie the Pooh movie,
yeah,
and it's like that's the message of that movie is to like not focus your entire life on the work or what the stressor or whatever. In this movie it's the work, but that's the stressor,
yeah.
and to make time for friends and family and stuff.
Yeah, or vice versa. Don't focus all your energy to lose that 5 pounds on the scale, so that like
Hmm.
95% of the time you're not eating anything and you're like really depressed. I mean, sometimes you're going out, you're socializing, go out, enjoy that. It's okay to have a slice of pizza, or like it's okay to have like a beer or something. Do not be obsessed by the numbers on the scale, which I mean now especially for a lot of women I see, it's just I don't know, messages of the media or whatever. There's so much of pressure to look perfect, to do everything perfect. It's okay to be a little bit imperfect.
Yeah, and it's I mean I say this as a person who does look at the scale on a regular basis, but that's it's not I just for me it's making sure I'm kind of heading towards the right
Direction. Yeah.
direction. Yeah, and if I'm not, then I know it's like, all right, well, let me see what I ate in my tracker the last couple days and see what I
Do
did
the,
wrong.
but like sometimes I'd have clients who would get on the scale in the morning and message me back saying I'm 300 grams heavier. Should I go? Should I just skip my dinner today? And I'm
Okay.
like, no. But that's just being obsessed. That's like no, no. It happens. It's okay. I mean, maybe you ate something which was too salty and your water intake is higher. It's just don't get obsessed by numbers so
Yeah,
much. Yeah, that your entire life revolves around it.
I think it's for me. I think it's good to have like, all right, I know that eventually, whether it's you
You're
know
gonna get your results.
yeah, it's just eventually getting to that goal number is like, okay, I know that like for me 200 is like when I know, and I know like science says I should be 185 or whatever, but for me I feel my best at around 200,
Yeah,
and that's so while it kind of sucks that like for the last 3 weeks I've been hovering around the same amount of weight, and I've
yeah,
only lost less than a pound each and every the last three official weigh-ins. So
yeah.
uh, it's still I still know that like, all right, well, I don't need to hit that 200. Like, there's nothing health wise telling me that I have to. Like, I'm not in danger of being 226. I am right now. I'm not in a danger of being that weight right now. It is a mental thing of like, I just want to get to that number. So like,
Right.
I'll get there eventually. And I am, even though it's zero point 0.2 or zero point 0.3 pounds a week, it is the right
Progress.
direction.
It's the right direction. And I think physical fitness is being able to do things with your body without your body stopping yourself.
Yeah.
And you stop only because of your mind. Because like if you're playing with your kids, you should be able to play with your kids for as long as you want, not
Hmm.
as long as your body allows. And if you can do that, then you're physically fit.
Yeah.
Then you don't get obsessed on the scale. Yeah.
And that's definitely like a huge motivation for me was like, all right, well, I want to be healthy for the kids. B, I want to be able to not you know die in the middle of running around with them and just lose my
Yeah.
breath.
So
uh and just naturally, like, it's for me it's almost 2 a.m. As we're
yeah,
sitting here recording this, and most people think that's crazy that I am up till 2 or later in the night, but this is like a typical night for me. Is like I'll usually be up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll go to bed and I'll wake up around 6, maybe 6:30. So I only get a few hours of sleep at night, which is not the healthiest thing, but my body can operate on that. When I
exactly.
hit when I
At
hit
home.
260, I
Yeah.
couldn't. Like, I was going to bed at 8 p.m. and getting 10 hours of sleep a night, and I wasn't able to function how my body normally functions.
Yeah, so that's how you measure fitness, right? And
Yeah.
also, like, because about the being healthy for your kids thing, I think that's one of the messages biggest message if I want to deliver to the world. I think it's every parent's moral responsibility to stay fit for your kids because your kids look up to you.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be a bad role model in terms of physical fitness, I mean, the reason I had to move to India, leaving the US, leaving my job, a high paying job, and I had a house there, I had a car, and I had to sell everything overnight was because my dad fell very, very sick, and the doctor said he probably wouldn't live for more than a few months. Um, and he made a full recovery,
Oh, that's
but
nice.
yeah, and that was like I remember having a panic attack when I heard it over the phone when I was miles away from him.
Mm,
Um, and I wish he took care of his health. I wish he ate healthier. And one of the reasons he was diagnosed, I mean, he was diagnosed with kidney stones, but because of his obesity, the doctors could not figure out, and they probably thought it was a tumor.
mm.
So I wish he was not obese, and I wish and this is what I want to say to all parents out there. You have a moral responsibility to be fit because you have kids who look up to you, and they are going to follow you. They are going to do what you show them, not what you say them.
Yeah, and I think it's you touched on earlier is fit doesn't mean you look like Britney Spears or
Yeah,
the Kardashians or whatever. Like fit can be like I feel I know I'm not 100% healthy and fit right now. I know that I could feel better than I do now, but for the
yeah,
most part at 226, not very much muscle, that I'm way healthier than I was 2 3 months ago, and I can keep up with my kids. And uh, some people would say I'm using fit very liberally by calling myself fit, but
yeah.
I feel fit at the very least. And
And you're still
um,
able to enjoy pizza once in a while, so that's good, right?
yeah, and
That's
that's another thing. Like yeah, you want to be fit for your kids and show them like the proper way to eat because they're going to do as you do, not do as you say. But it's also important to like on like if the kids want ice cream to be like, all right, you guys have ice cream, but I'm not going to do that because I'm on a diet. And it's you the thing that I've learned, and we kind of hit it on the head numerous times tonight, is that it's a lifestyle change. So of course you're going to have ice cream every once in a while. It's just
correct.
keeping it in moderation.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And showing them that you can enjoy your food, but 80% of the time you stay healthy so that you can enjoy the remaining 20% of the time without guilt.
Yeah. And it is definitely like if I were to call what I'm doing a diet, it's definitely the most enjoyable diet because I'm not cutting out pizza. I'm
Anything.
not. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I, I, there's some things I've cut out, like, but I've cut, and I shouldn't even say I've cut soda out. I know diet has its own like negative things to it,
Yeah.
but there's no sugar in it, and that helps me say in my head, I know that diet soda is still not good for me.
Yeah, correct.
But once in a blue, like once maybe twice a month, if I grow myself a diet Dr. Pepper, it's
Yeah.
not going to hurt me, and it's because of the, and maybe not for real. Maybe you can answer this. Is it better for me to drink a regular Dr. Pepper once or twice a month, or a diet Dr. Pepper once or twice a month?
It depends on your one to if it's a one to so aspartame, which is the artificial sweetener in Dr. Pepper, is what most people say is not healthy for you. But if you're doing it once or twice a month, there's just so little quantity in it. It's not gonna hurt you. But if someone's gonna have Dr. Pepper every single day and it's a diet, then I would say you'd rather have the regular because you're doing it every single day.
Yeah, yeah, and
If you're
and
doing it, yeah,
and that's like, I mean, when I was drinking soda daily, I was like, why am I going to drink diet soda that tastes awful if
yeah,
I could have this other stuff that doesn't have the fake sugar in it?
yeah,
And now my mindset is more like, I'm not going to drink much soda, and if I do, it's going to be diet Dr. Pepper because it tastes like Dr. Pepper,
yeah,
and I don't know, science says, or Weight Watchers says it's better for me because it's got no sugar, and I know that's not 100% true because of the fake sugar and whatnot. And then that's like the biggest transition I had this time around was not necessarily the soda because I was able to kind of give that up and I wasn't losing weight giving it up like I did 10 years ago.
right.
Um, it was more so I became a big coffee drinker over the last 10 to 15 years. But I say that as the guy who went to Dunkin' Donuts to drink uh, candy coffee and drink the lattes that are horrendous for you. And I've learned to kind of like cut down into just I'll still drink maybe 2-3 cups of coffee a day,
Right.
but only the first one is going to be the coffee that has a little bit of creamer in it and a little bit of just creamer. I don't put sugar in it anymore. Uh,
Right.
and then the other 2 cups are going to be black. Or like, and this is actually, I meant to, when you brought up there earlier, I wanted to ask you this question. And this will be one of the last things we talk about, because I know we're running up on time here, but uh, I have replaced, like I found a similar tasting caramel latte at a convenience store, Wawa, that's around me, that seems a lot healthier compared to the Dunkin' Donuts caramel latte, by just simply getting the sugar free caramel. Well, I don't think it's sugar free caramel, but there's no added sugar, and almond milk versus regular milk. So that being like, so if you're avoiding dairy for whatever reason, for me, it's because it's too many points for Weight Watchers, so I go to almond milk.
Right.
Is that like, what's the better alternative when in the world of milk, if you love milk but you're trying to stay away from real
Dairy milk.
milk? Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I used to be a huge fan of almond milk, and then I got my food intolerance test done, and it showed I'm intolerant to almonds, and I would not have even thought of that. So what happens when you're intolerant to a certain kind of food is your stomach, because it's just the body functions beautifully, it would still continue you would still continue eating the item without getting any symptoms, but your stomach will develop a lining around it so that the almonds are not absorbed by the intestine, which is good. But that lining also will prevent your micronutrients and vitamins from being absorbed. So that's just the stomach's defense mechanism. So I would say that every time you're choosing between a nut based milk, keep switching it up. Like use almond milk for a few weeks, then use soy milk for a few weeks, cashew milk for a few weeks, coconut milk for a few weeks, rice milk, walnut milk. So many different options. So keep switching
Mm.
it up. So in case you're intolerant to one, you're not going to get any signs or signals because it's different from food sensitivity. But you're still switching it up, and you're getting the nutrients from everything.
Interesting. I say, like, for me, the only thing I like the almond milk in is my latte, because it's barely yeah, I can barely taste it. It's just but it makes the coffee a little bit sweeter versus like skim milk or
Yeah.
whatever the other like
Yeah.
it gives it that little natural sweetener that the almond has. Gives it a
Yeah.
little nutty taste, not too much. I bought cashew milk because I was like, well, I love cashews, I don't like almonds, I'm gonna love the cashew milk. And
Yeah,
for
it's
me, the
so
cashew milk was like watered down. It was really a weird taste when you drank it straight. It was really weird.
I think with coffee, soy goes the best. You're not going to get the nutty aftertaste.
Hmm. Yeah, and I need to. What I've actually found out is that when I actually buy for home, when I actually buy, I didn't believe the hype of buying Starbucks coffee, because it's like
Yeah.
$20 for a bag of ground coffee, but it actually,
Right.
black Starbucks coffee actually tastes better than anything else I've bought from the store, freshly ground.
Oh my God, I should send you some locally ground coffee from India. It's so good. You
I
know,
need to get in that. I need to go and because like real coffee drinkers tell me, like, don't you get coffee from Wawa, which is, for me, is, I love it because it's just my local convenience store. But like, they're like, you're drinking all this coffee that's not like, if you want a real good tasting black coffee, I don't think they've named anything directly from India, but they do. It's all like fancy names and stuff that I don't recognize. So I do need to go to, like, I think like a smaller coffee shop that has these
yeah,
more exotic coffees.
yeah.
All right, so we have chatted for about an hour now. So before I let you go, please give any kind of plugs to websites, social media, where people can find you and what you're up to and whatnot.
Sure. So my website is my name, which is Roshni Sanghvi. I'll spell that out: ROSHNISANGHVI.com. And my social media plugins are all on my website. So Instagram, there's Facebook, Snapchat, anything, YouTube. I have a YouTube channel also. So yeah, definitely check it out and get some fitness tips and nutrition.
And we'll have a lot of those links in the show notes as well. And I'm sure I'll cover it in the pre-intro, post-outro type of deals that I do. Roshni, thank you for doing the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for being patient in spite of changing the timing so many times.
Thanks once again to Roshni for being on the show. Find her on Instagram at, I'm going to spell this, at ROSHNISANGHVI. Again, that's at ROSHNISANGHVI, or her website spelled the same exact way, .com. That's ROSHNISANGHVI.com. And you can get more information about her plant-based diet and her fitness instruction stuff. You can get nice tips on Instagram and whatnot. Follow her there. It would be much appreciated. And again, thank you for being on the show. If you're looking for another show to listen to, why don't you check out Victims and Villains? They're deep in their Halloween franchise recap that you do not want to miss. Josh uses his show to talk nerd, talk hope. He uses pop culture as a way to raise awareness for suicide prevention. He does the great work that only he could do. Love this guy. Love that he's part of our network. Love that he brings, along with Bullies Keep Out and the Ladies Who Rant, a nice new perspective to the network, and just not silly talk like this show does. And holy smokes, in a few days, you can catch our newest podcast, After Party of One, right here on the That's Entertainment Podcast Network, thatentertains.com/network. Each month, I'm going to sit down with someone from the tabletop role-playing game community and discuss Jeff Stormer's Party of One podcast. We get into each episode from the previous month before, and October's guest is Jeff Stormer himself. We sit down and we chat about the September episodes of Party of One. So listen to those and then come over to thatentertains.com/network and listen to After Party of One. It's exactly what it sounds like, an after talk show about the Party of One podcast. We'd like to end Everything is Awesome with a call to action. Super friends, there are a lot of terrible things happening right now, and it can feel like you can't do anything to help, but you can. It takes people like us to make a difference, and one of the easiest and most important ways to take action is to call your representatives about issues that are important to you. This week, Super Friends, our call to action is really simple. Make sure you're eligible to vote. November is coming up. I'm hammering this home for the next few weeks because voting is our number one voice when it comes to changing things. If you're not happy with how things are, vote. Make your voice heard. That's how change happens. So you want to make your voice heard in other ways, go to 5calls.org. I'm going to talk about that in just a second, and look at other issues that you can voice your opinion about. Let your senators and your House of Reps know that you want to see change. It starts with us. Enough complaining. Go out and vote. When I call my reps, I use a site called 5calls.org. That's the number 5calls.org. There, you'll find issue summaries of issues that are important to you, contact info for your representatives, and a script to read while you're on the phone to make sure your message gets across. Calling is quick, easy, and is one of the most important ways to have your voice heard. It can make a tremendous difference. Let your voice be heard. Thank you to our supporters on patreon.com/thatentertains. If you want to support us in a non-monetary way, word-of-mouth recommendations and 5-star rating reviews on iTunes are the best way to spread the good word of awesome. You can find us on @RealAwesomePod on Facebook.com and Twitter. You can also find us on Instagram @AwesomePodcast, and we're available on awesomepodcast.com and, of course, thatentertains.com/network. You can get more news about this show at awesomepodcast.com and thatentertains.com. But also on my personal Twitter @ThatNerdyKev is where I do a lot of things. If you're interested in ad rates, live appearances, help with your podcast, or have a question or comment, email us at awesome@crudehammerstudios.com. Everything is Awesome is a production of That Entertains Podcast Network in association with Crude Humor Studios. Crude Humor Studios is a Philadelphia-based production company specializing in audio. You can find more information at crudehumorstudios.com. Thanks for listening, super friends. We've been awesome.
That's Entertainment Podcast Network. Entertainment and culture. Artist-owned, fan-supported.